Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me, I have an amazing lady. I've had the opportunity to work with her a couple of times. I believe you've been on my summit too, Gail, right?
I have.
Um, yeah, so this is an amazing lady. I love how she shows up in the world. I love her message and her passion and her dedication. And I wanted you guys to hear about her and basically see the support that she provides. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening to this episode. Gail, please, let me introduce Miss Gail Swift. She is the person that is our guest today. Gail, tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, why you're passionate about what you do. And also, I really wanted to thank you for taking that time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today.
I think you and I are in agreement. Thank you so much for that. But you and I are in agreement that when it comes to kids and when it comes to families, we'll pretty much drop everything to make sure we can help someone with what they need. And yes, like you said, I'm Gail Swift. I'm the founder of Plans to Prosper Coaching, and I help people find out how they work when free to be themselves. Kathy Kolbe developed an algorithm a long time ago in 1987 to prove how people take action. And I help people discover how they take action. And when parents and kids know that, then they can release the grip on the how and then watch their child go.
I love that. At Role Model Maker, Gail, we talk a lot about working with your body instead of against it. And what you're doing is just in the same spirit, basically. So how did you get involved in this?
I had Tourette syndrome, a neurological disorder when I was young, and I was also very scattered. So I've heard. I was all over the place, and it wasn't a celebrated trait in school. Is the opposite, actually. And my parents had just about enough of that. And in 1991, they said, we are going to get you a Kolbe test because you need to know this about yourself and how you work. So for the first time in my life, I sat across from a woman who very sweetly said to me, Gail, you do your best work last minute. You will always pull it out last minute. Don't second guess that. And procrastination is a thing. It's a good thing for me and how I work. It is good. And I hadn't heard that up until that point. So knowing that about myself at a younger age helped me in the workforce. It helped me stand up for myself and respectfully request what I needed to be the best employee, daughter, friend that I could. And even more so, of course, after I had children and recognized that those little people, they don't work the way that I work. And my goal was to raise contributors and active contributors. You can't have a passive contributor. It's a bit of an oxymoron. And so in order to have an active contributor, I needed to be aware of their way of working. And when I noticed and saw their way and had them tested, as a parent, like I said, I released the grip, and then they took action and dealt with the consequences. And when they dealt with the consequences, they learned that it was their responsibility. Their outcome was their responsibility. And so they kept trying at things or recognizing how they could succeed their way. And there was no blaming. There was no wondering why it was different, because at a young age, I gave them the freedom to decide.
Mm-hmm. And that is instrumental. And I just discovered another reason why you and I are so alike, because I do things the same way. And I experienced both sides of that coin. First of all, I did my genius work last minute, so I'm a procrastinator. So people that oftentimes saw that I didn't study and I put things off, they would be flabbergasted by my scores and my results and what I could turn in so fast and have that kind of quality to it. So I thought that was cool. But by the same token, there was a lot of advice and comments being made about me procrastinating and putting things off. And as a result of that, I internalized a lot of that as shame and guilt. And why do I do this? And I felt like I wasn't in control of my body, which would actually affect my confidence as a result. So I'm so glad that you mentioned the importance like you mentioned that your parents decided to do this thing early on,
Mhm.
and that gave you this insight. And I learned it in college when I'm like, I went through every semester going through that shame and guilt.
Mm.
And then at the end of it, I was like, about 2 years into college, I'm like, why do I beat myself up on this? I know that this is what I do every single time. I've been doing this thing for 14, 15 years of my life. Why is it that I keep putting myself down because of this? And I know that I come through each time. So I basically did this shift that you're describing. So uh, it kind of allowed me to enjoy the rest of my time that I didn't have to work and focus that on other tasks that I wanted to
Dr.
do.
L, why did you shift then? Do you think what was preceding that?
I think what happened was I didn't like this cycle of, you know, going through the days, feeling bad that you're not doing your work, and then building it to a climax of the night before or whatever it happens to be. And now you're working like mad.
Mm.
And for people, for most people, for many people, that environment of the pressure is not pleasant, right? So they're
Mm-hmm.
like, why do you do this to yourself? But to me, that actually is a pleasant thing. I like working under pressure,
Mm-hmm.
turning things up, creating things. That's where my creativity really comes to life. So, but I was told that that's a bad thing. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
bad thing to put things off. It was a bad thing to enjoy procrastination and working under pressure. So, but then the result was never bad. So I'm like, why do I beat myself up if all of that other part is this? So I got just tired of going through that roller coaster. And that's why I made that change. But somehow I feel like now this has turned into an interview of me. Let's talk about
No,
you.
I just the reason the change, and isn't that it's all that is where what we were just talking about, it's similar, it's parallel. And the problem is when other people, if every being is born with a way of taking action from birth, like that's there and they have it.
Right.
The problem comes in when you start descending your way of working on other people when they're perfectly wired to solve problems their way. And this
Right.
pattern that I work with is how it's the blueprint of how they'll solve problems. So it saves quite a bit of time when you know that blueprint and you stop telling, because your kids are small and obviously you know they have a way of working and you trust it.
Right.
And you're going with it. That's the beauty of it. And it's sad and it makes me sick when kids up until the age of 18 or 21 think that they don't have a way of working and they have to take on what everyone else is telling them. And
Right.
they don't.
Right. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. All right. So in this process of, we know that this is an important thing because it affects you from early on. What are the typical challenges that you see with people when they come to you? Now, you've been doing this for a while, right? So there's two sets of challenges. One is the challenge that they are stuck in and they look for help and they come and see you, right? So that's the first challenge. Now, the second challenge is a product of where they have been, habits, things like that, right? So now you give them a solution, and in order for them to work that solution, something needs to change, right? So there is this additional challenge of changing. So what are these two challenges in your area that you see people deal with?
It's usually when the parents are starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. They're
Mhm.
starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel and they want their child prepared to leave and to be successful. And they are afraid that they won't be successful.
Mhm.
That's usually where I come in. And what's interesting to me is they want to see the magic before they give the freedom. That parent wants to see that magic in that child before they give them the freedom. If you can do this, then when you
Right.
can do this, then.
Right.
And it's flipped, Dr. Al, you and I both know this. The freedom needs to happen first.
Yep.
Under your roof so you can deal with the problems, the issues, the consequences before they leave.
Yeah.
But most parents, honestly, I don't think they want to see the pain.
Right. I
And
agree.
so they don't want to see the pain,
Yeah.
and they put it off and they put it off. And now they're like to the point of, oh my gosh, I have to make sure my child is ready to launch.
Right.
When you and I both know this starts at 1, 2, 3 years old.
Exactly.
And so obviously we both can't flip that Titanic around in 6 months, right? In 6 months. But what I can do and do with parents is give them the blueprint and say, should you choose to support, and there will be pain. There will be pain because you've been doing it this way for a long time. Should you choose to support, these are very specific ways and questions that you can ask your son or daughter to make sure they can solve problems. And the interesting thing about that, kids have a hard time with that, because if they're used to their parents doing things for them for the last 15 years, and then this big brown-eyed woman comes along and starts making life a little difficult, I'm proving and showing that everyone can do it, but they've been used to not doing it, and it's comfortable there.
Right. Absolutely. It's the logic of it is similar to somebody saying, I am going to start eating like a thin person once I become thin. It's just very similar to that you have to actually start doing the things, like you said, give the freedom, and then see them accept the responsibility and handle it. As opposed to say, once you can handle the responsibility, then I'm going to give you the freedom.
Right.
Backwards. Right. Exactly. Awesome. So like one of the things, the pain points that you actually talked about is that fear, right? That, what if they struggle? And I don't want to see that on the parent side. And then on the kid side, they're looking at it as like, I'm comfortable with this thing, this framework that has been created around me, this shelter, and I'm not ready for stepping out of that comfort zone. So what are your tips and secrets and challenges for audience members that are really looking for some actionable items, like right after this, that they're going to do things slightly differently or try things that might make a difference?
To even know that your child does have a way of working, to acknowledge that that exists. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing, just to acknowledge that that exists. Like, oh my goodness, they are capable of solving their own problems, and just sitting with that for a few minutes, a few days, and slowly but surely. So it's like a balloon, right? A balloon full of confetti. I think I might have shared this example with you before, but if you have a balloon full of confetti, beautiful confetti on the inside, and it's coming to the ground and it's going to pop. And when it pops, you'll see what's inside, but the parent has a tendency to catch the balloon and not let it pop. Mm-hmm. And of course, inside the popping is the pain, but then you see what it's made of. Right. So if you have a few more years left with your student under their roof, it is a perfect opportunity for you to be there through a struggle, to allow that child to see what's inside of them, be there with the struggle. I don't try and take my kids out of bad situations. I'm here to walk with them through it and to teach them to go through it. And yes, it's okay to cry. It's okay to have a fit and be mad. That's actually healthy, because then you're going to get through it on the other side. So recognize that your child has a way of working. Allow them to make some mistakes and deal with some natural consequences before they leave the house. And lastly, please call me if you want to know your pattern for sure of how your student works.
That's beautifully said. Actually, what you just said is so powerful, because so many parents, especially when they're dealing with teenagers, they come and they talk about, how can I connect with my teenager? And this, what you just described, is the best way to connect with them, because that forms the foundation of the relationship you're going to build with your future adult child. And that cannot be built upon how they were when they were kids, where you were taking care of them. It needs to be built on the fact that we are friends, that we are people that we can collaborate and be there for each other through tough times. And we acknowledge that everybody has challenges, and everybody needs to go through a learning process and a learning period. And I'm there for you in that capacity, not to go ahead and pick things up for you and solve problems for you. That is huge for allowing room for the children to grow and become the adult individuals that they will be in just a few years. So powerful stuff you just mentioned there. And acknowledging that the kids have this processing ability is very important. I personally, now my kids are not teenagers yet, but I personally have been amazed many times by, I make a suggestion and the kids go ahead and internalize it and they own it and they say, nope, I like to do it this way. And they find their own ways of dealing with the situation that I never even thought of. And I'm like, that's a cool way of looking at it. And you want to enable the child to do that so that they get good at it, so that when they leave the nest and they're doing it on their own without the parent support, they're not falling down with nobody to be there for them. And you have a wealth of expertise, right? So that expertise should come into play while they're in the nest, not after they leave and they don't have access to it. And then, of course, there's expertise like you. So, Gail, tell us a little bit about how people can find more things about you and who you are, and how to work with you.
On my website, there are 3 different ways to test people. I work with 3-year-olds. There is a nonverbal assessment. So if there is a language barrier or obviously a reading barrier, so 3 years old to about 9 years old, there's a bag of toys. And the way that child plays with that bag of toys, and the goal is to make something amazing. And when you videotape them for 4 to 12 minutes, we're able to ascertain what is striving behavior or cognitive behavior and what is play. We're able to get a number based on that action. And then from about 4th grade reading level to 23, there's a student aptitude quiz and an OPGIG career assessment. And then 18 years and up is what's called a Colby A, stands for Adult Index. All these examples are found on my website, planstoprospercoaching.com. And the best way to get hold of me is my email, gail@planstoprospercoaching.com.
Awesome. I'll be sure to put those in the description box for our audience members. Gail, the 3-year-old one sounds so much fun. I almost want to do it myself, so maybe I can gain some insight in my inner child or something.
Yes. Yes.
So, absolutely. Very cool. So guys, please take advantage of this amazing resource that's in front of you, and reach out to Gail and connect with her and find ways in which you can show up as a better self, and you can also help support your children in a bigger and better way so that they can go ahead and change the future of humanity by living a full life and living up to their full potential. Gail, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. I know that there is just, like, I can talk to you forever. There's just so much information that you have that is so insightful for our audience members, our parents. So thank you for being here. And guys, if you haven't already done so, please click the description, click the subscribe button, so that you can get access and get notified of our future experts that come in and share their gifts and expertise as well. Before we go, Gail, any final words of wisdom for our audience members?
Kathy Colby has a phrase, or actually a quote, that I really love. And she says that success is the freedom to be yourself.
There's another one of my values, freedom. So
Right?
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you, Dr. L. Bye for now.